back to another episode of the Soup Bowl. I am your host, Renee Murdoch. I am so excited that you are here today and that you are listening, that you're liking, that you're sharing, and that you are going on this journey with me. What can I say? It is great to see you again after a long week. Right? A lot of things is going on in our lives, and school is just back in session, activities are taking place, and so here we are. Again, I'm just so happy that you're here. Look, share this with your friends, right? So we can just go on this lovely journey together, because we were never meant to do life alone. Yes, I'm always saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it. So that's just the beauty of it, right? That I'm already telling you up front. I'm going to keep saying this, and you're going to keep hearing it. Why? Because I want you to get it. That's why I'm going to keep saying it. So if I ever miss not saying it, then you're going to be like, Renee, why you didn't say? But I don't think you're ever going to get me there. You're not going to catch me off guard, right? So what are we going to get into today? Well, let me tell you, I already talked about this long week, right? That a lot happens during the week. And I literally feel like, so we had like this holiday, right? And then we're supposed to have like this short week. And I felt like the week was not 5 days. I felt like the week was like 10, possibly even 20. That's what I was feeling last week. There was just so much going on. It was a lot going on. And so we had this event at work, and literally I was going through my phone, like towards the end of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't taken any pictures or anything. And so I was pulling my phone out, and I was like, oh, let me take some pictures, let me take some videos, and just to remember this or post some things. And so as I was going through my gallery or whatever, I found this one picture which I did not plan on taking, and I'm looking at myself in this picture. And I was like, oh yeah, that's probably what was going on with me. Like, I'm looking around the area, like all of these things are going on around me, and I'm like, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home, right? So, I was feeling like Dorothy in that moment. I was feeling like Dorothy. If I only had the red shoes, the glittery red shoes, I could have been clicking my heels and ended up back in Kansas, right? No. I would have been going to Kansas, but I'm just saying, like, that's just the way I was feeling. I was like, this is too much. What are these people doing? There's just all this noise, and it's, to me, unpurposeful at this point. Like, it's unpurposeful, and I can't take it. It's too much. And so I was like, okay, I need to go and hide somewhere away from here, right? And so I was just like, yeah, no, I can't do this. So you probably know where I'm going with this, right? So most of us, right, have heard of the words introvert and extrovert. And some of us even say, I'm a little bit of both, depending on the situation. So you already know about this, right? Oh, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, right? And that's true, right? But what if I told you that there's more to this conversation, right? That there are other personality types that explains those shifts in our energy and our behavior, right? And so today we can kind of talk about that. We can kind of unpack, right, what the spectrum is, the personalities, with the introverts, the extroverts, and the hidden, right, the long lost, right, personality trait is about the ambiverts and also the omniverts, right? And some of these terms may be familiar to you. You may even read about them. You may even done a personality assessment on it, right? But by the end of the day, we want you to know, and for everyone else to know, right, that we want to be able to recognize where we are at in any of those at any given time, right? That we can be in those at any given time, at any given environment, and we need to recognize which ones that we are in. Right, so just a little bit of history because I looked it up and that's what I like to do. I like to go when I hear something, I'm like, oh snap, what's that? So because I literally have wrote on social media about like from an ambivert, right? When I was talking just a little bit about this event, right? So just a little history here, right? The words introvert and extrovert go all the way back to 1923, right? Back in the early 1900s with Carl Jung, right? And now here's the interesting part, right? That Jung wasn't actually doing this research in regards to our personality, right? It wasn't geared really towards people personality traits, right? It was more about the function, like the thinking, the feeling, the sensing was directed more inward or outward, right? And so that's what it was for. But over the time, this language has stuck, and we started doing what? Oh, I'm an introvert, or I'm an extrovert. And now here we are, a little bit over 100 years later, right? We're still talking about this, but even in the pandemic, all of a sudden, the long lost, right, personality traits came back, which was the ambivert, right, and the omnivert, right? So, and why is it? Because we were in solitude, right? And so, and then, people stealed away, and then there was people that didn't, and like when school, when school started opening back up, business started opening back up, people started returning into the office. It really kind of shook people up where they're at, and maybe even recognizing some things that was going on with themselves when they were in certain environments, right? And so it revealed, right, some things again about the forgotten personality types, right? And so as we walk through these 4 types, I'm just going to go through them really quickly because I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, right? By starting with one of the most that we know about, right, which is the introvert, right? What is the introvert? Raise your hand if you already know if you're an introvert or not. Okay, I see you. I see that hand. I see that hand. I don't see that hand. Okay, so introverts, they recharge alone, right? They value depth. They were the ones that was like, yes, we're at home. Whew. I don't have to worry about people knocking on my door. I don't have to worry about hearing my neighbor in their conversation. I don't have to worry about interaction. If they call a meeting, I can listen in. I am not even going to turn my camera on, right? They often prefer a one-on-one conversation or a small group setting. They're okay with 4 or no more, right? That they just do not prefer. I don't want to say like, but they don't prefer to be in larger group setting and to, speak out in all the games and things of that nature, right? They focus deeply, they listen well, they build strong and meaningful connections. And this is important, right? Because when we're thinking about how we're leading, right, in our homes and in small teams and businesses, this is good stuff to know, right? Because you might be able to point these out in certain people on your teams or in your family construct, right? And it helps when you're doing things for those particular teams. So that's the introvert. But there are certain things that you must watch out for, right? So an introvert, which I can see happening during the during the pandemic, and could possibly be one of the reasons why, right, when it comes to the student population and the way grades were and things of that nature, and acclimating ourselves back into what we are now calling our new norm. An introvert can slip into isolation if not monitored carefully, right? And too much social stimulation can even leave them exhausted and overwhelmed. So again, we got to monitor, right, the environment in which we're in. So like if you're a parent and you see that your child literally leans more towards the introvert side of the spectrum, and then you have to figure out ways like how can I get them, pull them over to this side, right? To give them a balance, right? Because we're going to talk about like being in a safe environment is really what's pulling that particular personality out of you, right? Okay, so our next one, the extrovert. We all know this one, right? It's the extrovert. Oh my gosh, they are so much. That's what the introvert is saying. They're just too much. That's what the introvert is saying, right? They are an energized group of people, right? They thrive on social settings. They're outgoing. They feed off the energy in the room. So like if you get, in a space and there's training going on and there's an extrovert and they want you to be excited. They want you to talk back to them, right? They might even have music playing in the background. They might have games, all of these things going on. And you're just like, oh my gosh, it's too many fireworks. But they love the fireworks. They love the people. If you put a person that is very social into a space of solitude for too long, they will run and they will scream, right? So there are strengths to this, right? Like they're great people when it comes to networking. They're great, like I said, talk about training, leadership presence. They got good adaptability. And they can usually walk into a room and very easily engage people. They can work the room. Like you see someone just working the room, they're like, oh wow, okay, great. I can't work the room like that, right? But it just comes with ease for them, right? But there's a challenge, right, in this as well, right? So if there's too much quietness, too much downtime, it can make that person feel very uncomfortable. They don't want to sit with their own thoughts. It's not very easy to do. Deep reflection takes a lot of effort for them to really like sit. Because to go into to be reflective, right, is to be still. To be reflective is to go into deep thinking and deep thought. And it does take practice for someone that has like a lot of noise around them. And when I say noise, I don't mean that to be insulting to anyone that enjoys that type of setting. When I say noise, I mean like the TV may be going and you can have music going at the same time. You can have people talking, at the same time. It doesn't drain you. It doesn't bother you. You're just kind of like, what? For someone that comes into that type of space, right, and they're not used to that type of energy that's going around, right, not even from people within themselves, but just the energy that's in that room can literally be overwhelming for them. They may think that it is like unuseful noise, like I was saying earlier, unpurposeful noise, right? Clanging cymbals. And you ever, you hear that before, just and you're just like, oh my, like no one else, like it's just not a good sound. So, but usually that is that introvert versus extrovert, right? So in this spectrum that we have, we think that there's an introvert over here and then there's an extrovert over here, and you're either on either side. But when you think about a spectrum, right, then what's in the middle? Or what's more or less like closest to the middle on the left side or the right side, right? So we tend to think that people are way over here and people are way over here, and that's not true. That is not the way that we were designed. Us as individuals are designed to respond to our environment, pretty much. To an environment in which we are comfortable with, an environment where we feel safe. And in those environments is where, our personality starts to come out. And so that's why I said it's neither way over here, neither way over there. But it's good to know where we are at. Because if you're way over here on the side of being the introvert, then that's really not healthy. And if you're way on the side over here as being a extrovert, then that also is not healthy, right? So we need to be able to recognize where we're at in these areas to be able to balance ourselves out and not go to the extreme on anyone, right? Because I was just like, yo, this is way too much for me. Like, I need to just go and steal away. That's just the way I was. And I literally was like, okay, I can't do this. So I went to my office and I, regrouped and whatnot. Because I recognized that I was in overload mode. Like I did a sign, it was like, warning, 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 overload, overload, overload. Right? So that's the way I was feeling. Okay, so getting to this lost personality trait was more than one. It's ambivert, right? And here is where this things get interesting, right? Because between these two lies the ambivert, right? The ambivert is like this middle point, right, where you're balanced, and sometimes you lean into the introvert, and sometimes you're leaning into the extrovert side, right? Depending on the context, depending on the environment, depending on the people that's there, right? So you know that if you're going to a certain space or whatever, it's going to be a party, it's going to be a function, and there's going to be people there, right? You can go and you can mingle a bit, right? But you also want to step away from it, and recharge yourself to get back into it. And that's exactly what I had to do. Like, I knew from the beginning that all of these people were going to be there and that I needed to. But the thing about it that I did not do was I did not set a time, right? Like, okay, I'm going to be out here for this long and then I need to revert back or whatever. I think I got to the point where I was in overload, right? And not necessarily you might need to be that structured or whatever, but depending on if you know the event, like this happens every year and you know how it runs, then possibly you could be a little bit more structured in that, right? Excuse me. But there is strength in having, being within the ambivert lane, right? Because there's flexibility there, right? These people, they can connect widely and deeply at the same time. They're good in mentoring. They often hit certain areas within the construct of people that other people cannot get to because they're willing to go a little bit deeper, and they listen when needed. They're great contributors in the space of a group setting on a team, and they also easily adapt to change, easily adapt to the situations in which they are in, and when it is necessary, they will step up. They will step up and lead. And they also believe in letting others shine. They also believe that. And I was like, yeah, this is me. I let people shine when they need to shine. And nobody else is going to step up. I'm like, let's do this. Let's get it done. Like, we don't have time to be lagging behind, but we got to get it done. Right? And I'm also the type of person where I'm like, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. Let's unpack that. So, this is something that actually I mentioned to Murdoch today. I don't even realize if he even knew, but when I first started college, my major was psychology. It really was. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a psychologist. So maybe that's why it's still kind of there. But I did change my major, but that's what I started off with, right? But there's some challenges, as with anything else in life, with ambiverts, right? So there's like this conflict that's always going on. There's a conflict that's always going on. I don't know why I wanted to rhyme there. I just felt a need of an inspiration of a song. Okay. But anyway, so there is this conflict that goes on within the ambivert. Am I an introvert? Or am I an extrovert? Am I? Like you're questioning constantly where you at? Where is it? But the good thing about it is, like, guess what? You're actually both. You're both, honey. You're both. You're not just one. And you don't have to settle for just being in one because you're both. And that's okay to be both. It's okay to be both. I don't have to be on one end or versus the other end of the spectrum. I can be in the middle of it. And that's the great thing about it. That's the great thing about it. All right, so here we go. The last one we're going to talk about today. Now, there's actually another one, but I think there's still research being done about that, so I'm not going to bring that up. But this last one that I'm going to bring up, also along with the forgotten personality traits, is the omnivert. The omnivert. Now, take a guess. If you just got the traits of the ambivert, what do you think the omnivert is? That's a possibility. That's a possibility. Extremeness in one area. That is a possibility. These are really good answers that are coming in. I like this. I like this. Okay. Well, let's talk about this, right? The omnivert, okay, is what tends to like surprise people about it. Because like even when I read it, I was like, ooh. I was like, is that me? But then I was like, no, that's not me. But like it could be me. I mean, like I think people that are omniverse like don't want to own up to it, and like people might even think that there's some like bipolarism going on there too, but that's not really the case. But we just like to label things, so that's probably the issue too. So the thing about the omnivert, right? They also show the same. They got the same traits, right, of the introvert and also the extrovert. But the thing about the omnivert that is different than the ambivert is that there's no balance. It's like you have both, but you're extreme in both of them. And not when I say extreme in both of them, I'm not talking about extreme at the same time, but you're constantly shifting over here, and then you're shifting over here, and then you're shifting over here. And there's no balance in there. And so when you're doing this, you're not doing this like in private and then you come out like this. Like, no, you're doing this in the construct of that environment, in that space. To the point where people think that like you have these major mood swings and they don't know how to take you. They don't know what to do with you. And so it's like, should I say this today? Because I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know, how they're going to respond. And so that cannot be like literally a good thing, right? And so you're off balance, right? The person is off balance. So depending on, again, the environment, the season of your life, you could be swinging, right? Like one part, you want to be extremely in solitude. You don't want nobody saying nothing to you. You want to be alone. You want to go just about your day and not have any action with people. Then the next time you're craving people, to be in the spaces with people. And then at the same time, you want to be alone because you want to reflect, right? And you avoid any type of social setting, social interaction. And then again, in another life, no, I'm kidding. It's the same life. But anyway, you really want to be outgoing, right? You want to be the life of the party, and you want that energy from people. And so if you're with the same people or you're in the same team or whatever, and then, one part, you're just kind of like, yeah, just give me my assignment. Don't ask me nothing else and leave me alone. Just send that to me through an email and it'll be good. And then the other part of you is just kind of like, oh no, let's collaborate. Let's get together. Let's meet. Let's this and that, whatever. And so people don't know how to take that. They don't know how to take it, right? And so again, with anything else, there's the pluses of it, but then there's also, right, the negatives of, being this omnivert type personality, right? Like I said, people might think that you're bipolar when actually you're not bipolar. You're not, right? You're just going through these moods in an extreme way because it's not really balanced. And so your behavior is unpredictable. It's unpredictable. And so people don't know how to respond, and people don't know how to really act around you, especially if your person is, sensitive to certain things or conversations or whatever. It's kind of like, I don't know what to say. I want to say it, but I don't want to like tip them over the edge or whatever the case may be, right? The other thing too is that people might not understand. They might not understand where you're coming from, and so it can hold up progress. It can also leave you as an individual in frustration because you don't understand. I mean, because they don't understand what you want to convey and what your real, stake in the ground, so to speak, is on a particular matter. Because again, you're extreme on one end of the other. And then the thing about it is that the shift could be very dramatic, depending on, again, the environment. I'm going to keep saying that, the environment, right? So there's this big difference between the two. I want to say big difference. I'm saying there is differences between the two, right? Think of it as an ambivert says, I'll mingle for a while, right? I'm at a networking event, right? Or you could be at a family gathering, and in their mind, they're like, I'm going to mingle for a while. Then when I'm good, right, I'm going to slip away. I'm going to leave or leave the party, go back to my space, or if I'm in this construct of a family, I'm going to go to, the theater room, or I'm going to go back up to my room, right, so that it's balanced. Right, when you have the omnivert in the situation, again, the situation is what? It's a networking event, or it's in the construct of a family, right? One particular setting, they would like to be the center of attention. They're talking to everybody. They're really engaging. They're shutting the place down. They've opened up the place also at the same time. And then the next outing or the next family gathering, right, they don't want to be there, right? They just like, no, I'm not coming. Or they're like, yeah, I'm here, I'm out, or whatever. We should just end this thing. Like, it's almost as though, like they're making the whole event causing more stress on everybody in the event. Let me put it like that. Or in the environment, right? It's just kind of like whatever I'm saying, whatever I do, like if you don't want to be there, don't be there. Don't, put that on other people in regards to how you're feeling about that, right? So the reason why we're talking about this today is because, again, I had wrote this on my social media post, and people was like, what is that about? And so I was just like, okay, let me talk about just a little bit more in depth, right? Again, I'm not doing a thesis on it or whatever. But you can also look these things up and research yourself. There's some good research out there. When you talk about personality types, again, we can't just say this is who I am, like I'm stuck in here, versus like I primarily lean more towards this in these type of environments. So like at a workplace, I could be right more, still away, versus being more socially bound to things. And in my family, I could be more social versus, being more alone and in need, deep reflection of things like that. And so it's just, knowing which way. So like for me, I do, like when I interact with people, I do tend to go back and then I reflect. I do a lot of reflection. Literally, and this is the reason why, one of the reasons why I drive with no music. I drive with no music in the vehicle. So I'm either in deep thinking and I'm in reflection, or I'm like on the phone. But I do not drive with music. Interesting, yes. All right. So as we're wrapping up, because we're getting to an end, we could talk more about this, but I really wanted to kind of wrap up of why this topic even came into play. So we want to make sure we're not permanently labeling ourselves, right? And so these questions that I want to leave you with in doing this is, when I am thriving, right? What am I doing? When I'm thriving, what am I doing? Right? When I am drained, right? Why is that? Right? And how can I honor the energy in the spaces that I'm in? Right? That's gonna kind of help you think about that when you're going through trying to figure out which way you're leaning in certain environments and certain situations. Excuse me. And knowing this is another reason why this is important, because when it comes to your work life, your personal life, this is going to help you know where and when to set your boundaries, right? To manage your energy, right? And to give yourself permission to recharge the way that it works for you. It may not be with everyone else, and it may be by yourself, or it could be both, right? But whatever way it is, let it be your boundary and not letting other people put those boundaries on you, right? So here's the bottom line. You do not have to choose one or the other and stay there for the rest of your life, right? You're not just an introvert or an extrovert or even a steady ambivert. Oh, shocker. You're a human being. We're human beings, right? We're layered. We're adaptable. And yes, even sometimes unpredictable. Right? And so in that, the goal is not to pick a label, but the goal is to know, right, where you are sitting at in those environments for the most part. Because whether you're the introvert or the extrovert, or whoever's showing up for that day, right, whoever takes the lead for that day, right, for you to be aware of that and to be okay with that. And that is the beauty of it all. That's the beauty of it all. All right, so there we go. So you don't have to be an extrovert, an introvert, an ambivert, or an omnivert, right? But you can, whatever shows up that day. And for that day, it was ambivert. All right, so hey, do know that leading is teachable. And I love you, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Until next time, peace. Oh yeah, don't forget to go to www.4mosaic.com, where you can sign up, you can connect with me, and I would love to do life with you even more. All right, until next time.